That time already. That's right. The Valley of Spirits are here, coming at you with some sick new information. And today, we join you from the Dalaran Refugee Bar. It's a little bit of a secret, hidden away spot for the...
Show me where it was at.
Yeah. Yep, gotta go through a little bit of a tunnel, and there's a cool mage over there showing the mages how to turn people into the mosswool sheep, which is pretty interesting.
I will say that is a very nice polymorph.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. We'll tell you a little bit more about how you get that later, though. But we are here with Bartender Bob. Brother Bob.
I love how it's simplicity. Bartender Bob.
Right, no crazy name, nothing like that.
Exactly. It's just sweet to the point.
They've been very, very hospitable here. The Dalaran folk keep trying to repay us for having them find a place here in Dornegal. But we pay for our own drinks where we come from, so I do appreciate it, guys. But we'll take it from here for sure. So, Nick, speaking of taking it from here, what do we have coming up for the listeners this week?
Well, this week we have some articles, one of them regarding the hidden profession catch-up mechanic, another one how to deal with the EDNA fight in Stone Vault, dealing specifically with the tank, and some additional information on the WoW 20th anniversary. And there's a couple more we got sprinkled in there, but I don't think we needed to list them all out. But yeah, so Jordan, why don't we kick this week off? Tell us what you got done last week.
All right. So I had a bit of some family stuff happen this week, more or less. So I was a little bit busy outside of the game. So I only got 2 normal bosses down, which Nick actually was there with me on these. And around the second boss, I was like falling asleep at my keyboard, so I called it.
Yeah.
And then I did one heroic fight, and then I got a call that I had to take, for sure. So definitely a little bit busy in the real life. I did end up sneaking into an LFR in my evoker, which went fine. I did fine on the charts. The hot nerfs weren't really too bad, in my opinion. We're going to talk about it a little bit more coming up as well. And then I did also do a tiny bit of PvP on the mage. Something I did want to cover, though, is I did more PvP last week, and I did not talk about it in the Tavern Talk as much as I wanted to. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my solo shuffle experience last week coming up in the Tavern Talk. But enough about me. Nick, what did you get up to this week?
Well, as we talked about last week, I was deciding whether or not to push up the prop pally, which I have all week. We're sitting about 78, 79 right now, so hopefully next week will be capped and then geared. Yeah, I just figured that it's going to be easier for me to swap between Ret and Prot on the Paladins and get into Mythics and other things too, especially with the lull, it sounds like, in tanks. But I haven't tanked in a long time, so it's going to be interesting to have to relearn all that stuff. Or I guess get the dust off. So
yeah, the big mitigate too, because it's not about damage anymore.
Right, yeah. So it's a complete rework of the brain. But we did end up doing a killer delve, Jordan, last week, which I loved doing. That was fun. I want to do more with you.
Absolutely.
And that was that last boss was. I thought we were gonna go down a couple of times, but we were like, there was once or twice where I was like, I was close to dying.
Yeah, the 9s are where it starts to not be a joke anymore, for sure.
But it was
9s
really
and 10s.
fun.
Yeah,
I had a great time. But that was my week. Like, I've been focusing getting the prot going and then getting that, doing extra stuff with you. It's fun. Jordan, why don't you tell us what the guild got up to this week?
we ended up taking a week off. I had to take care of some business on Tuesday, so we didn't end up getting a group of goons together. I do think we're going to try and hit up a heroic this next coming up Tuesday, so we'll have a bit more to report, I think, next week about what the guild accomplishes. But we'll keep you posted. But we didn't do a whole lot this week at all. We actually didn't even do our keys on the weekend like we normally do, so definitely took a week off this week.
Well, and it's needed sometimes. Like, we don't have to keep running ourselves ragged on stuff.
But we did have a couple of articles we were going to talk about this week.
Yeah, let's get into them.
And so I was going to start off with the first one. We were going to talk briefly about the Xal'atath's bargain, this Voidbound. What the Voidbound Affix is you have an ad that'll spawn periodically, and it reduces the amount of damage that you deal to the enemies that are around it. So the enemies that are alive that you're fighting right now. No damage mitigate until you kill this thing. Once you kill this thing, you get a cooldown reduction buff. The tricky part is they nerfed it to where it was easy enough to be killed, but then they reverted it. So now it's back to kind of being not like a mini boss, but definitely a bigger than regular ad. I think it's interesting that we're not talking a whole lot about the affixes yet. You may have noticed because we're waiting for the pattern to become a little bit more set in stone, figure out make sure our strategies for dealing with these affixes are kind of the proper and well accepted ones. So the only reason why I decided to bring this one up is that they're still tweaking a lot of these. And if one of these affixes feels really gross on a certain fight, they're changing a lot of the interactions. Like one of the updates that they had over the last week was Grim Batol now has like orange circles around the tentacles. So now it's easier to see. And so lots of really cool changes that they're doing to dungeons. I just wanted to highlight it saying that this is season 1 and they're trying a whole new bin of affixes. This is still some tuning to be done.
Right. Well, and they're gonna keep tuning throughout season 1 and probably 2 as well. Like stuff's not gonna get solidified for a bit.
Right. There's just good changes. Sense. There's you don't get the an example is the circles on Grim Batol is really bad. When you have to purple circles on a purple floor that is shrinking towards a boss, you have to interrupt the circles going to the boss. So I do think it's better than that affix.
Right.
But there's also the possibility where, because this Voidbound ad will spawn near any player, essentially. So if you have a ranged player that spawns it in the near the outside, and then for the last Grim Batol boss, the big circle starts coming in, for example. Mm-hmm. Now you have a purple boss and a giant black floor, and you have to make sure that thing dies, or you have severe damage reduction for like 20 seconds.
Yeah, which, especially doing a higher keys, it can be a pain in the ass for that 20 seconds.
Well, yeah, especially on something like a Stone Vault or a Grim Batol, like really harder scaling dungeons, as opposed to something a little easier like Miss of the Scythe, for example. Miss is pretty tame. As long as you can get through the puzzle, it's pretty tame.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, that's annoying. I hate that dungeon so much. I'd rather do Grim Batol. I'll be honest.
You're wrong.
I'd rather do that.
I just think you're wrong. Nope. They'll take Scythe over Batol any day of the week.
I hate the puzzle.
Ain't that bad. Get the add-on. There's an add-on for it. Look it up.
Right. No. Get good, scrub. No, what is the second boss after that? Where just it's as annoying as Chromie was. Oh my god.
Oh, I don't remember.
The one that was like, let's play a game or whatever. Like,
oh, the Miss boss. Lucky you.
Of course you know Lucky.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. No fooling you.
It's as annoying to me as
joke's on you. Yeah, it reminds me of the Templar boss. Urag, you blundering oaf. So, Nick, why don't you had a little bit you wanted to talk about an silent profession catch-up mechanic.
Blizzard ended up, as Jordan mentioned, putting in a hidden profession catch-up mechanic. It was found through data mining, which is why people have been calling it hidden, because it's not anywhere in the professions tab with any information on it. You can use a weak auras called Maya's Knowledge Point Tracker. It'll show you all the points that are available to your profession. Specifically, gathering right now is what we're talking about. You want to focus on the green ones. They'll add a plus 60 point skill up when completed. But before you get to those ones, you're going to have to complete the turn-in quests for your profession. So that's like if you're doing mining, it's ore. If you're doing herbalisms, it's all the herbs that you have to turn in for them. Then you're able to get that quick 60-point skill up. It won't let you catch up 100%, but you're going to get close to those that have been doing professions since day one, since we're a couple weeks old already in this expansion.
We're going to get more into some of the drawbacks of this system, but I think the idea of this is good. It makes it to where if you join the expansion late, you can still actually do...
And if you don't start your professions till later, too.
And you actually can do some things to impact the market, for example. You're not like that far behind.
Yeah. Well, and so for those that are in a crafting profession sense, you want to look at the patron orders that have flickers of knowledge. That's going to be your catch-up mechanic. Sadly, it does mean that crafters will have to wait for those to appear, but you tend to get about 1 or 2 a day. So it works. It evens out pretty much. I think it's pretty cool. I don't like the fact they hit it at all. I find that actually really annoying.
They could have just been upfront about it, but...
Exactly. Well, but that's why we're here.
But we'll get a little bit into it, too. Like, a couple of my professions, I had a pretty good intuition, and I did the right way, like my blacksmithing and my tailoring, for example. But coming up in the Tavern Talk, we're going to talk about the drawback of this, how I screwed up my enchanting, and we'll get into what that means and what it'll mean for me to fix it. So we'll get into that later, especially with this new silent mechanic that it would have been nice to be clearly communicated. But yeah, moving on. So there's something
You're
for
upset
crafting
about it a little
professions?
No,
Right.
that was pretty much it. Just looking for the flickers on the crafting orders.
Okay.
For the patron orders. But I remember your Discord message of, dude, I have to redo enchanting.
Yeah, and it's because we'll get into it later.
Jordan, why don't you take us into the tank dispel during the EDNA fight on Stone Vault? Because I know you have been really wanting to talk about that.
So for the EDNA fight in Stone Vault, he will do a seismic smash on the tanks. And so there's a quick little cheese for this, is normally the healer would dispel it right away to deal with the damage is the idea. And then you get the damage reduction on the tank after that. What you actually want to do is have either use a separate defensive or have the tank use a defensive cooldown when it hits you the first time, when the seismic smash hits it. So then the fight will continue, you'll get the refracting beams to destroy the volatile spikes, and then when he goes to do seismic smash again on the tank, that's when you want to dispel it, because then what you can do is dispel it, get the damage reduction, have him get hit with it with having the damage reduction. You get to use the boss against himself, essentially. So you want to hold off on doing that dispel until he's casting a seismic smash, which it's a 4-second cast, gives you a decent amount of time to react and dispel it. The tricky part of that is you need to have a separate cooldown that isn't the dispel or the cure disease to allow it to last and use the debuff when he seismic smashes again. Just some tricky little hint there, but it honestly makes the tank damage way easier to manage on that fight. And so we'll see if this kind of thing is cool. We'll dive into a couple more mechanics as going on. We'll see if that's something we like in the news section. Maybe it'll be more of a tavern talk thing. We'll see where it fits, right?
And it's good to help too with people who are having issues at spots, and when we can find little tidbits to help, like, why not pass it along?
Right. That's a cool concept, right? Thinking about how to use the Kiss Curse mechanic against it, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Cool little tidbit there.
Well, and we've talked about this for numerous times, like the last umpteen weeks, of with all these changes in tanks and healers, and we're having to actually focus more on how can we get the edge against the game itself, pretty much. So I think these are really helpful for people.
Absolutely. So moving forward. So this is a big one. And so, Nick, you actually did a bit more of a deep dive on the stuff we know about the 20th anniversary event coming up.
Yeah.
So will you talk a little bit about how it's going to work, a little bit of our dynamic through this event, maybe?
Yep. So just a fair warning here. All of the information that we know is from the public test realm. So what we know is what's able to be tested. So there could be different changes coming down the road that we don't know about because it hasn't been released to us yet. We're going to break down the two major categories that you can get the bronze celebration tokens, which is how you're going to buy all the cool stuff from the anniversary. So you get one-time sources and repeating sources. For one-time sources, these are mainly quests like completing Anniversary Introduction and Blackrock Death. Together, they're going to earn you 9 points, 4 for the anniversary, 5 for Blackrock. And then when we move on to repeatable sources, you're going to be able to do things like completing the daily quests for the anniversary, which will earn you 3 tokens per day. Weekly quests and events will also grant you tokens in Kaz-Alagar. The events will provide 1 token each, and they're things like the Theater Trope or the Awakening Machine, whereas the Kaz-Alagar weekly quests are going to provide 2 tokens at completion. And finally, for your repeatables, completing 20th anniversary weekly quests will give you 3 tokens each. Or I like how we found that Wowhead has Quirsts, because there's a typo.
I think it's cool that some of this is inherently got from just doing your usual weekly things in the game. So it's not necessarily tied to going to a certain event or doing going to a certain quest mob like Brewfest, for example.
Yep.
And so you're going to get a thing or two just for playing the game like you normally do.
Yeah, which is great. I think they did that. I hope they did that on purpose. I would think they did. Because if you look at the repeatable sources, you're going to get 1 for doing your weekly stuff. So if you're doing all of the weekly events in Kaz-Alagar, that's Special Assignments, Theater Trope, Awakening Machine, Wax Collecting, Spreading the Light, and Severed Threads pack. So, but you're going to get like 5, 6 right there alone in that week. And then again, if you
want to farm it out and get everything, you can definitely do that too.
Yeah, so it's going to be easy to get a lot of these tokens just by playing, as Jordan said, too, going into delves, doing all the things you aren't normally doing. So, Jordan, I think we have a very interesting article here that we didn't talk about or mention earlier, which is the upcoming class tuning and weekly reset on Hero Talent Tree.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. They're doing a lot to all kinds of people, like Demon Hunter, for example, on Havoc. They're doing things like on the Eldraki? Probably Eldraki.
I don't know.
So for on Demon Hunter, for Havoc on the Eldraki tree, wounded quarry damage is increased by 100%. 5%. And they're doing things like on, where was the Paladin one we were looking at? Yeah, Holy Paladin.
Yeah, Holy Paladin, all the healing is reduced by 5%. But then we were talking about this earlier, and you mentioned that Hammer and Anvil's healing is increased by 150.
Right, so now it's like it's 2.5 times what it was.
Plus the radius has been increased by 15 yards, right above that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because I don't know, like, it's already, if I remember right, like, if you tier list healers, Holy is like bottom.
Yeah, it depends on where you look. They're all over the place right now.
Yeah, but to do a reduction of 5% and then give us two things of, 150 and 50% increase, it's interesting. What did they do for your evoker?
They titled the Wowhead article, Upcoming Class Tuning on Weekly Reset, Hero Talent Tree and Preservation Evoker Nerf is the headline for these updates on the Wowhead article. I think it was a little bit put out of proportion, but they increased engulf healing by 20%, but then an incredibly important kit change. And so part of the Flame Shaper kit and preservation is you're burning these consume flame procs to super buff your spells. So they just straight up said all consume flame healing reduced by 50%. And so that is a pretty big nerf. I don't think it's as big as they're making it out to be. Like, you're going to be playing it a little differently. You're going to be, maybe Chrono Warden isn't the worst anymore now. So there's a couple of plays in here still. It's not like it's the end of the world, but I guess calling it a nerf is correct. But come on, don't title the article with that.
Did you get scared when I shared the article to
Well,
you?
I was like, no, what did they do? And I was like, well, because the problem is nobody plays Evoker already. Now it's like, preservation's nerfed. Well, I don't have to play it now. We'll see. There's a lot to unpack here. Like, Retribution alone has, how many is that? 7 or 8 Templar changes?
Yeah, but I like the first line. All ability damage increased by 6. Damn it, that's protection.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack here. Definitely take a look at every class got touched a little bit, and some classes got touched a lot. It's interesting because Fury got, like, buff nerfs, so it might change. Probably not. I imagine it'll still be hit the stuff that's lit up, I'm sure. But yeah, so definitely take a look at the updates. There's a lot going on there. I just wanted to specifically talk about how preservation isn't dead, and I'll die by that.
That's
by
fine.
that. But whatever.
Yeah, like Jordan said, it is a lot there to unpack. We're not, like, we made the decision a while ago. We're not going to talk about this stuff line by line because it bores the hell out of, I'm sure, everybody. So check it out. We're going to have all the links for these articles in our description, as we always do. But Jordan, I think you wanted to really touch on this cool polymorph you showed me, and I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah, so this is pretty easy. All you have to do to get this is we will have a link to the article that'll have the waypoint for the add-on, so you can just put the waypoint in the add-on and walk to the door. But on the northeastern side of Dornegal, there's a secret little tunnel up at the very top of it. And if you go into this tunnel, especially if you're a mage, but if you go into this tunnel, eventually you'll reach a door you can open. And you can open the door, it closes behind you, it's kind of cool, like it's a secret little place. And if you load the article up, there will be a picture, there's like a Hearthstone table, and the person on the right side of this has a cool little reward for mages. All you have to do is, it's like one of the accept complete quests, for example. When you bring it up, it will give you the option to learn the Mosswool polymorph skin, and you just complete the quest and boom. Then in your abilities, if you hit P to go to abilities, and then you go to, you'll see you now have another polymorph. It'll be called polymorph variants. It'll be similar to like your portals or your teleports, same kind of map menu, and you can go over and drag that symbol in place of your polymorph to turn them into a Mosswool instead of a sheep.
And
so
it
pretty
looks
exciting.
way better. It looks way better. You showed me this because we dueled. You're like, I gotta show you something. I'm like, this is
Yeah, it
a
was so
scam. Yeah, I was like, this is a scam to duel. All right, cool, we'll do it. And then you actually showed me. I was like, oh, it's really cool. Put a little image up for you guys, but it's a way better model, I think.
Yeah, reason to use that Amir Giselle gladiator set with the so I can be a tree, a faux druid,
Yeah.
and turn you into a little druid sheep. So yeah, pretty exciting, pretty easy to get. If you just take a look at that link we have in the description, it'll give you the waypoints. It's very, very easy. Very easy. You do have to have the Dornegal main quest completed, though, however, or have a character that has gotten to the level 80 campaign.
Well, Jordan, I know I really like that, and I hope other people end up getting it too, because it's a really cool polymorph. But I think it is time to move on to the coming week with our events and holidays. What do we got coming up?
What we do have coming to an end is we no longer have South Shore versus Tordma. It is over. But we do have classic Ashran coming back. Some good old classic, good old murder. And so the Delve bonus event will be ending. So you won't have the quest to do 5 for the weekly to get the cash. Now we will have a pet battle bonus event. So you'll be able to do a certain amount of PvP pet battles, was what it was last season. We'll see. We don't know for certain what they're going to do with it. But if it stays the same as last season, then it will be you can do, I believe, 5 or 10 matches against PvP pet battles, and then you'll be able to get a level 25 upgrade to boost a battle pet up to level 25.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And so we also have time walking next week, and we have the Wrath time walking event. So we'll be going through some Wrath dungeons. We'll be able to do the old Wrath raid. And so if you do want any more information about time walking or anything like that, it tells you which raid they'll choose and what dungeons will be available and things like that. If you go to your calendar, click on time walking, it'll show you everything about the Wrath event if you're interested. But you'll be able to spend your time walking tokens on Wrath of the Lich King apparel. If you want to go to the time walking zones in Wrath of the Lich King, you'll have to look up exactly where they're at, but they're essentially scattered throughout places in Northrend that they sell stuff with time walking tokens.
I am quite excited for that, though. I love Lich King, so I'm going to be hitting the time walking.
It's good for Mogs. I mean, great Mogs came from that expansion for sure.
Oh, yeah. It'd be really a nice a nice thing to be able to buy with the time walking tokens.
What's that?
Invincible. That'd be really cool to buy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would, for sure. Definitely.
I think a lot of people would instead of trying to get it.
So at the time of recording Dark Moon Fair started up, but we'll be 2 days in by the time this airs. So that means you will have until the 12th to continue to get on your Ferris wheels, get your Mogs, get your experience buffs if you're leveling a character up, things like that. Definitely take a look at the Dark Moon Fair. So something we had this last weekend was the Arena World Cup War Within Season 1 Cup 2 tournament. So we watched Liquid do a bit better here. They did lose to Welcome to the Jungle in the first round. And then they beat out Power Tolls, and they beat out F Tier, and then they beat out the Move to come back and face Welcome to the Jungle again, which they lost to. So Welcome to the Jungle is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
They actually, in an unaired match, the only match that they lost was to a specific Feral Druid comp, and so they just stole it and won the whole tournament with it.
I love it.
So they're a force to be reckoned with in NA. Very excited for when we get to do the America-Europe standoff, because I think North America is very, very good, with Team Liquid having, so much struggle to get to where they're at. So I'm pretty excited to see on the world stage once we get closer to the end of it. Which we're actually going to talk a little bit about how confusing it is to follow the Arena World Cup and when we're actually going to face each other and how they got there and things like that. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But we also had Europe, where Echo did actually win above Phoenix Reborn, and they actually pretty much swept, which is funny because like Bleached Bones, for example, they went to 5 games. But then Echo swept Drive Overload, and then they also swept Phoenix Reborn. So pretty interesting. Echo is pretty dominant over in Europe as far as PvP goes. I mean, I guess they weren't dominant enough to get the world first, but, they are doing pretty good over there and being consistent in their PvP bracket for sure. So just covering that up, Echo won the Cup 2, and Welcome to the Jung won the North America Cup 2. All right, and so Nick, would you send us out?
Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of the Valley of Spirits. We are your hosts, Jordan and Nick, your go-to Horde players. Join us in Dornegal on the Mal'Ganis server. Look up our guild, the Electric Boogaloo, for some epic adventures. Stay connected with us on our social media. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or X as it is known these days, by searching the Valley of Spirits podcast. Don't miss out on an episode, and follow us on Spotify or anywhere you find your podcasts. Follow us on YouTube for additional content not found on our podcast platforms. Until next time, may your quest be glorious and your loot be plentiful. And as always, for the Horde!